Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/AskReddit by Planet Reddit. Teachers of Reddit. Have you ever accidentally said something to the class that you instantly regretted? I worked as a teacher at a school for kids with special needs. One day a girl would not stop saying money shot, money shot, money shot, and then chuckling. A few of the boys knew what she was referring to and chuckled as well. I asked her to stop saying money shot. She looked up at me and stopped laughing and in all earnestness asked, "What does money shot mean?" I froze, not knowing what to say. Being a male staff, there was no way I could explain the dirty meaning of money shot to a 17-year-old student with special needs. So I opened my big dumb mouth and just said, "Google it." Within about 3 seconds I realized what I had just said and loudly yelled, No, don't Google it." When my youngest brother was little, this was his way of demanding the meaning of words. What does that mean? You don't need to know. I'll tell you when you're older. If you don't tell me now, I'm going to go Google it. Shit. I once said, "Are you ducking kidding me?" in earshot of my 6th graders after I watched the class bully go up to bat and strike out. Prior to this I had overheard him telling some other boys behind the backstop how much of a kitten they are and to watch me knock it out of the park. Class bully swung like a wimp and the nerdy non-athletic kids ended up having a field day with him. The students turned and stared at me after I said it, and they asked me, "Did I just hear you say duck?" I turned to the students and said, "No, but I just heard you say it." We continued on with our game and had a great day. Edit completing the story. Well played. When I taught 4th grade, I had a hearing impaired little boy who wore special hearing aids that picked up my voice from a microphone I wore around my neck while teaching. I was pretty good about turning it off when I was not delivering a lesson, but sometimes I forgot. One day I was so frustrated with my class, and I went into the hallway to cool off. I vented quietly while banging my head against the wall. "These stupid ducking kids. I want to knock their stupid ducking heads together." Of course I didn't mean it. Took a deep breath and went back in. The little boy was smiling a shit-eating grin and winked at me. He never told anyone. He was so cool. That's the coolest thing ever. Seriously. The self-control to keep that a secret is mind-boggling. Especially for a 4th grader. That's what I call using his head. I was talking about genres of literature to my 3rd graders and I said something along the lines of, "Fantasy is something made up or that couldn't happen. Like Santa Claus." I heard a gasp from a student and another student said, "Nuh. I was that guy. The guy who took away the mystery." Oh, I did that to my friend's 3 younger siblings. I got in so much trouble for that. A student once came into my math class to promote a donkey basketball game the teachers were going to participate in. He said, "I don't know about you, but I really want to see Mr. C," referring to the teacher of the class we were in, "get up on that ass and ride it." Mr. C instantly responded, "You sound like my wife." After my peers burst into hysterical laughter. He explained, absolutely mortified, he meant the student's comment reminded him of his wife saying that she wanted to see an ass riding an ass. WTF is donkey basketball? You can pick your seats. I trust you guys. I'm pretty much learning this one right now. Learned this the 2nd week of student teaching. Resist the need of being the cool teacher. I'm a high school English teacher. My 1st year teaching. My freshmen were learning plot elements. As the kids were quietly jotting down notes for defining the word climax, one completely naive boy raised his hand and asked, "Is it possible to have more than one climax?" It took everything I had to keep it together. Only if the author is female. I taught English in a maximum security juvenile detention facility that was made up of primarily inner city kids anywhere from 13-17. Kids were there on any number of charges ranging from repeat drug offenses to weapons charges, rape, and murder. I was teaching a unit on text connections. Text to text. Text to self. Text to world. I had brought in an article on PTSD in the military because a number of students in my class's cell block groups had mentioned they had family members who were or had been in the service. A buddy of mine was active duty army and I figured this was something we could make an easy connection with. The lesson went over great in 2 classes. The last, however, was extremely difficult. NE. Does anyone here have a family member or friend who has served in the military? Crickets. NE. Does anyone have a friend whose family members have been in the military? Crickets. NE. Does anyone know anybody who may know someone who has been in the military? Crickets. NE. Does anyone in the room know anyone who has killed somebody? Crickets. Then suddenly, student. Nigger. You in a room with about 8 of them. Awkward silence. The matter-of-fact way I imagine the kid saying that is cracking me up. I think that was a valid question. Did you use it to your advantage and steer the conversation that way? Preface. The word for penis in Japanese is chinchin. I was a teacher in Japan at the time. In a 6th grade class. We were playing a game and I was naming different body parts for them to touch. Touch your knee. Touch your eyebrow. Touch your elbow. I was having trouble thinking of the next part for them to touch. And blurted out touch your chin. Without thinking. Cue 26th grade boys laughing and grabbing their crotches. Now I'm gonna go to Japan and run around saying not by the hairs of my chinny chin chin. In high school there was a student named Porky. Everyone at the school knew he was a stoner. One day our science teacher got pissed because everyone failed the test. Except for Porky. She yelled maybe you should all start smoking pot. Because Porky here is the only one who passed the test. Bringing a new meaning to puff. Puff. Pass. Study high. Take the test high. Get high scores. I used to work at a preschool as a toddler teacher. We had these annoying strings hanging from the ceiling with clothespins on them. So that we could clip up artwork or decorations. One of them was right at eye level. And after walking right into it several times and uttering obscenities under my breath, I decided to take it down. One boy, a very observant little boy as it turns out, asked me, "Where damn it go?" It took me a week to convince him that clothespins are not called damnits. Yes. These are the best. With little kids you get a million of these stories. I once had a girl in my early preschool class who was playing mommy in the kitchen center. She was banging dishes around in the sink and kept shouting shit. Over and over. Her mom was mortified when we told her. Points for not having to do with accidentally drawing a penis. But seriously. Toddlers are so freaking funny about stuff like this. I remember something my teacher once said to the class that made everyone cringe. We were in secondary school and working on some maths problems as the teacher went around the room helping. A boy in my class, Chris, had a really bad lisp and in an attempt to get the teacher's attention shouted "there" as in so quick as a flash the teacher replied "yeth." Cree. Everyone burst out laughing and the teacher was obviously horrified at what he had said. He was a new teacher and obviously was so used to joking around with his mates that he just forgot where he was for a second. About 6 years ago, I am teaching 7th grade writing. I had just gotten a new student who could be best described as strange. My lesson is coming to an end and I am getting ready to give the assignment. The strange new kid raises his hand about the same time as another student. He then begins to whistle at me while raising his hand. I turn to him and explode. I ask, "Do you think I am a ducking dog?" The class erupts in laughter. I never lived that one down. All the classes heard about it. TLDR, I dropped the F-bomb on a new kid. In your defense, it is really rude to whistle at somebody. When I did the district jazz band for my area, our director was hilarious. It's like 2 hours before our performance. He decides, "Hey, that song you all hate and can barely manage? We're gonna do it." Guitarist mutters duck. A few people do that too often. V-Brand says what? What's going on? Someone dropped an F-bomb. V-Brand says no. You can't drop F-bombs. You must project them. With great force. I was teaching BLF to a bunch of seniors and somehow or another had to describe and sketch out a few of the weapons on the board. When I got to the double-headed battle axe, I took one look at my sketch and erased it immediately. Too late, I had already drawn a penis on the board in front of 20 plus boys. Pandemonium ensued. Now class, I'm not an artist. but I can draw a mean penis. Right? I work at a juvenile correctional facility as a teacher. One day my students were really grouchy and uncooperative, so I got flustered and said, "Boy, are you guys crabby today?" Quicker than I could understand what was happening, 5 of the biggest, burly, known gang-affiliated youth shot up out of their chairs with literal fire in their eyes and said, "What the duck did you just say?" Turns out the Bloods gang members will sometimes call the Crips gang members crabs to insult them. Thankfully they quickly realized I did not mean it with malice, being a pasty middle-aged white guy, and sat down before it got ugly. TLDR. Accidentally insulted the Crips gang while teaching at a JUV correctional facility. The Bloods gang members will sometimes call the Crips gang members crabs to insult them. That sounds like something out of West Side Story. It's such a dad joke. Edit. Hey guys. Did you know there is a subreddit called Dad Jokes? I do. Because everyone keeps telling me. It's hilariously childish. The Crips call blood slobs. From what I understand, they'll never say or write the name of their rival gang. During student teaching, I split the class up into groups to learn about how different social groups, women, African Americans, Native Americans, Mexican Americans, farmers, etc., were impacted by the New Deal. Once they were in their groups, I sent them to different areas of the classroom to research. When I dropped this line, "Where are my African Americans at?" African Americans to the back of the classroom. There were 2 black kids in class. My teacher told me if we wouldn't stop talking, she would stop teaching. She regretted that. Edit. Guys, she really did die. Well, damn, thanks for the karma, Mrs. J. You were the best. No joke. I had a teacher who actually did that. Every lesson, I failed English. So after she retired from teaching, what did she go on to do? Spelling out the word while giving a spelling test. Sadly, it's happened more than once. The kids love it though. My history teacher, when we were learning about samurai, called seppuku bukkake. Although to be fair, both are rather messy. At least with seppuku it's all over after the first prick. I accidentally choked on my saliva during a lesson and I blurted out, "Kids, I have one lesson for you, always swallow." The entire 12th grade class burst into laughter and never let me forget it. 7th grade. My first year teaching. Kid did not want to read his next line of dialogue in A Christmas Carol. I thought he was just nervous about reading to the class, so I say, very reassuringly with a smile, "I know it's hard." And then he said his next line. Very attached to me was dong. Whole class busts up laughing. Whoever put that in the textbook was definitely trolling middle school teachers. I'm a middle school art teacher. I had my 8th grade students make paper mache initials, decorating them to match their personality. Anyway, we were putting them away one day when one of the kids goes, "Ems, Miss Kitten, where do you want the D?" And I said, "Oh, wherever it will fit." The class died laughing and it took me about 2 seconds to realize what I'd said. Oops. I was teaching English at a kindergarten, Hakwon, in South Korea. It was my first teaching gig and I didn't really know what I was doing. The kids were very young and were getting bored with my lesson. They were leaving their chairs and started singing songs, Kiddie Chaos, etc. In a moment of dumb frustration I smacked my forehead and said, "Oh duck." All of the kids heard what I said clearly and at the same time they all dropped what they were doing and mimicked me. 15 kids were running around the class and smacking their foreheads while saying "oh duck" really loudly. They saw that I freaked out a little when I said, "No no no no," and held my hands out in a pleading manner. So they, in turn, all said "no no no no," and mimicked me again. At that moment I just laughed at what was happening because they had no idea what they were saying but were having a lot more fun than learning about verbs. It was an experience I'll always remember. Yeah, I sucked at teaching. I'm imagining that scene in Ice Age with all the sloths who mimic what Sid does, but replacing sloths with small children. I'm imagining Homer as a missionary in the South Pacific Island when they mimic him saying "oh god oh god oh god" rolling on the floor. First lesson with a new class. 28 first graders sitting in a circle. In a hurry from the piano to the whiteboard, I jump over this boy's head. Except I don't. I knock him out with my knee. Right to his forehead. He passed out on the floor. The discipline in that class from then on. Edit. Spelling. THNXO baby baby. How was I supposed to know? Edit number 2. Only Reddit will award you for knocking a kid senseless. I like it. Gold. Jerry. Gold. Thank you. Didn't see that coming. Did ya? Ducker? Are you ducking sorry? My buddy is kind of an awkward guy and he teaches high school. He had just shaved his beard and in class, a kid says, "Oh, Mr. Jones, you shaved." Knowing he usually shaves his neck. He grabs his face and says, "Oh, you mean up here?" Kids die laughing thinking he's talking about shaving his balls in front of high school kids. Edit. Many people have asked for the location of Mr. Jones. He teaches chemistry in a suburb of Chicago. There was another time where he was playing music as the kids worked in groups and the song Only the Good Die Young came on. He only knew the line "Come on, Virginia," so he turns to a girl named Virginia in his class and says, "I wrote this song for you, Virginia." The entire song is about trying to get a girl to have sex with you. The entire class, my buddy included, just sat in silence as they analyzed the lyrics. There is no way he is not the creepy teacher at his school. It was at that moment Michael realized the song had a very different meaning. One day in high school, a student Amanda mentioned to the class that her father ran marathons. The students who knew her father went on to talk about how fit he was and how young he looked. This was the day after parent-teacher conferences. And upon hearing this conversation, our gay Spanish teacher chimed in with, "Yeah, he's a DILF." The class froze. Amanda started crying. And he almost got fired. I once told a fresh group of grade 9 Comp C students that they could download Python onto their home computer for free. Just go to www.python.com. Back then, that led to porn. Heck, back in the late 90s we had some sort of internet training day in English class. I think it was to be able to look up online sources. The English teacher had absolutely no computer savvy and tried to get everyone to go to Yahoo. But he pronounced it Yahoo. Most of us knew what he meant. But at least if you went to www.yahoo.com. Suddenly, porn. When I was a teacher's assistant, the school had some kind of clown in for some assembly. He proceeded to tell us a story with a moral to it. Made entertaining with actions and miming. It was about a guy who was ice fishing. Problem was that the clown was French Canadian. And with his accent when he said ice it sounded like ass. Blissfully unaware of this, he told an elementary school all about a guy going ass fishing. And all of the things he did around the asshole. Little did you know, that was on purpose. Haha, I considered that. But this was a Christian private school. Some balls on that guy if it was on purpose. My so was a middle school teacher for a couple years and she told me this story. She was talking about the importance of doing their homework. She was trying to think of something to say and she came up with, "You can't just go home and play video games naked all day." Some kid from the back of the class shouts, "Is that what you do after school?" Cue a red face and boisterous laughter. So that's where my mustache went. I'm in a better place now. My math teacher accidentally called this Mexican kid a beaner and then tried to play it off to the class like it was his cool nickname or something. My best friend and I just looked at each other in shock because nobody else even noticed nor knew what the word meant. UHH. His nickname's Beaner because he's like a jelly bean. You just want a UHH. Eat him you. Maybe I should start over. Oh boy. Now he's racist and a pedophile. I'm teaching summer school in Baltimore City this summer. 2 days ago, instead of saying we'll start with the form of a thesis statement, I said let's start with the storm of a thesis statement. We did not accomplish as much as I wanted to that day. That's almost poetic. With the storm of a thesis statement. I like the let's start with the storm bit. So powerful. My social studies teacher heard kids calling a short chubby boy Chode and assumed it was his nickname. So instead of asking what it meant, he called him that for 3 months in class before finding out what it meant. He then apologized for about an hour straight to the kid. Good times in 10th grade. Not a teacher, but I was a nanny for some time. And one time we pulled up to the house and my phone was ringing. After I pulled over and answered the call, I told the kids we'd go inside in a minute. It was my boyfriend. And he said something that shocked me and I said, oh shit. Completely forgetting the kids were in the back seat, aged 2, 4 and 8. The 2 and 4-year-old were almost asleep and didn't catch on. But I looked back after I got off the phone and the 8-year-old's eyes were wide as tea saucers. I played stupid and said, what? Like I had no idea. He said, you said the S word. Mum gets so angry when dad says that word. We're never supposed to say it. He looked so mortified. And I told him that I was telling my boyfriend how to make deviled eggs. He didn't know what they were. So I showed him on my phone what they look like. And I told him that I was telling my boyfriend how to make the yolk filling. I told him that he actually heard me say oh shit but only heard the second part. He totally bought it. And the mom howled with laughter when I told her later about it later. How did you seriously come up with that response? Question mark. My English teacher once said, and I quote, class, it is time for some pleasure reading, so grab your copies of Duckleberry Finn and get going. He's a pretty old-fashioned teacher. But he busted out laughing at his mistake, then asked us not to tell anyone. Well, you abused his trust then, didn't you? He trusted you. Had a computing teacher about 6 years ago. Great guy. Bit of a dry sense of humor though. Me and him got along well. One day this girl kept asking to use his computer to check her emails because Hotmail was blocked for students. So they didn't use MSN or whatever. She kept asking and asking until he finally said, stop it or I'll teabag you. This happened in Scotland. And while teabagging is a well-known term in certain parts of Glasgow, and for the older generation, it's used to mean stab multiple times in the chest. He was clearly joking about the whole stabbing thing and it was all part of his sense of humor. But when we finally explained what the meaning behind it was, he was mortified. Something like that nowadays will get you fired. Was a known story throughout school as well. Last time I saw him I reminded him about it and he cringed so hard. Edit. We did inform him of the real meaning. In 7th grade I had a school project with my friend about Confucius. And we made a cool poster. We burned the edges and stained the entire thing with tea. And painted on Chinese characters. When the teacher asked us how we got the poster to look old, she said I teabagged it Q. I did this in my last comment too. Laughter. Q is a noun and refers to a line that you stand in. Or alternatively to a traditional Chinese hairstyle. Q is a noun or verb. And it means a signal for something to happen, originally in theater. Q is not an English word at all. Edit. As I have been reminded. To queue is also a verb meaning to stand in a queue. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.